Today on the Sick Podcast, I'm going to talk to you about a player the Montreal Canadiens should trade, who a lot of people don't want to trade, and I'm going to tell you why. I'll also talk to you about a player the Montreal Canadiens are very interested in. And the big question is, will both players be involved in the same trade? We'll discuss coming up on the Sick Podcast.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, and Lehkonen. If the last time you went to Lehkonen was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Lehkonen. The menu will surprise you.
Yeah, the menu will surprise you. It did surprise me. I visited many Lehkonens over the last couple of months, and I have to tell you, the new menu, the new look, the new everything, the staff, the service, wow, beautiful. The last time you went to Lehkonen was when the Habs won the Cup. It's time you go back to Lehkonen. The menu will surprise you. It surprised me. Brought to you in part by Lehkonen and 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. Tell your friends about it. The podcast is sick. I've told you that before, and I think I've been true to my word. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter at the Sick Podcast, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll be notified every time we upload an episode or we go live. All right. I want to talk to you today about Artturi Lehkonen. It's very important that I do. I have an opinion on him that a lot of people don't share. In the end, I might be wrong, and I might look pretty bad. But you know what? I'm going to give you my my thinking on this one. Okay, I'm going to give you my thinking on this one. Artturi Lehkonen right now has 13 goals. He scored 2 goals last night in Vancouver in the Canadiens' loss to the Canucks. He looked great again. He has 28 points. He's having a great year. His career high is an 18-goal season, his first season in the National Hockey League. And his career high in points, 31 points. If Lehkonen keeps going the way he's going, well, he's going to end up eclipsing the goal mark, and he's going to end up eclipsing the point mark. So he'll score more goals than he ever did in a single season, and he'll pick up more points than he ever did in a single season. As a matter of fact, there's like over 25 games left in the season, and he's 3 points shy of equaling his point total and 5 goals shy of equaling his goal total. I say this. There's different ways to look at this. Artturi Lehkonen, his last 4 years, scored 12. He scored 11. He scored 13. And he scored 7. He's never picked up more than 31 points like we just talked about. And now there's this year. Under Martin St. Louis, in the final year of his contract, playing real well on a line with Jake Evans and with Rem Pitlick, can play him with anybody, does a good job on the penalty kill, very responsible defensive forward, who's producing as well, low maintenance, shows up to work, does all the little things, a player that every team would want to have, especially a team that's going in the playoffs, especially a team that can make a run for the Cup. As a matter of fact, I'll take it a step further. I believe that the defending Stanley Cup champion, Tampa Bay Lightning, who, until proven otherwise, have to be considered the deepest team in the league, they've won the Cup 2 years in a row, I believe that John Cooper would take Artturi Lehkonen on his team. So if a Stanley Cup champion team would take Artturi Lehkonen on their team, then you're probably saying, so Tony, if he's good for the Stanley Cup champions, why wouldn't he be good for the Montreal Canadiens, who are statistically one of the worst teams in hockey? And I'm going to answer that for you because of what we just talked about. The Canadiens are not a Stanley Cup contender, nor does it look like they will be in the next year or two. Artturi Lehkonen's an RFA at the end of the year. He's going to want a contract that's going to be 3+ years, and he's going to want $3+ million. If he looks at Yoel Armia's contract, Armia got $3.4 million per season times 4 years. Let's just say Lehkonen wants something like that. $3.5 million, 4 years. If Lehkonen in a year or two produces the way he used to or didn't, you're going to regret the contract. You're going to say, why didn't they trade Lehkonen when they had a chance? How many times has this happened that you've said to yourself, why didn't they trade? You know, you were probably happy when they extended Gallagher, and now you're saying, why didn't they trade Gallagher when they had a chance? You're probably happy, or you were probably happy when they extended Jeff Petrie. Now you're saying, why didn't they trade Petrie when they had the chance? You were probably happy when they extended Carey Price. And now you're saying, why didn't they trade Carey Price when they had the chance? The Canadians aren't going for a cup in the next year or two. And it's not like Artturi Lehkonen is totally untouchable and totally irreplaceable. I mean, they picked up Rem Pitlick off of waivers, who already looks like he can do what Lehkonen is doing. He's younger, and he's just as fast, if not faster. So we're not talking about an irreplaceable player. We're talking about a good player whose stock, and if this is the stock market, the way Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes want to call it, whose stock has never been higher. In the stock market, you're supposed to buy low and sell high. Will Lehkonen's value ever get higher? Now, maybe Lehkonen's better than the player that he has been for the last 4 years because he was never coached by Marty St. Louis, and Marty St. Louis was just what the doctor ordered for Artturi Lehkonen. And maybe your Lehkonen's hit that age, and maybe he's going to be better next year. He's going to be better the year after that. He's going to be better the year after that. We don't know that. What we do know is the last 4 years that he's had. We also know his stock's never been higher. We also know he's in demand. We also know that the Canadians are not going to be a cup contender over the next couple of years. And we also know that if you pay a guy $3.5 million, $3.4 million, and you give him a 4-year deal, if within a couple of years he becomes a fourth-line player and not a third-line player, you're going to hate that contract. Your goal should be to give third-line players, especially fourth-line players, as minimal as possible. And so, is there a player that can go out there and do what Lehkonen does for $1 million? I think the answer to that is no. But at the same time, will Lehkonen be worth 3, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5 if he's playing on a fourth line in a couple of years? Will his stock ever be higher? I don't believe it will be. I know it's not a popular opinion, and I'm okay if I'm going to take a little bit of heat on this one. But if I had to say yes or no, Tony Marinaro, would you trade Artturi Lehkonen right now? I would. I take a look at who the Canadians are going to have on the wing next year. So let's just say that line of Suzuki, Anderson, and Caulfield sticks. Perfect. Then you have Dvorak on a second line. You have Hoffman. You have Gallagher, who's going to be difficult to move. He'll have 5 years left at $6.5 million. Then you still have Jonathan Drouin. He'll have 1 year left on his contract. You have Jake Evans. You have Rem Pitlick. Evans is a center. I get it. You have Dauphin, who might be able to play wing. You have Ylonen, who's playing right wing with the Laval Rocket and playing well. He might be called up. I'm trading Artturi Lehkonen. I am. It's a sick podcast. SportBuffShop.com. I want to give them a shout out for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and our sick merchandise as well. Use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. And I also want to give a shout out to Betway. For the love of the game, sign up and deposit on Betway for 100% deposit bonus. By the way, it'll be accepted within a minute, the deposit will. The easiest sports book for Canadians. E-transfers are accepted. All right. Who are the Canadians interested in? They're interested in Jake McBain. Who's Jake McBain? Jake McBain is a 6'4" centerman who plays at Boston College. He's about 210 pounds, who leads the team in points this year. What do I know about Boston College? In the previous 3 years, Jake McBain played on a team that had Oliver Wahlstrom, who's with the New York Islanders, Alex Newhook, who's with the Colorado Avalanche, Matthew Boldy, who's with the Minnesota Wild. Speaking of which, it's the Wild who drafted McBain in the 3rd round, 63rd overall in the 2018 draft. Jake McBain plays for Jerry York. Jerry York has been coaching for almost 50 years, or 50 years, I think. I think he's been coaching Boston College for 28 years. They develop, or Jerry York has developed, really good players. He's won a bunch of championships, NCAA titles, tournaments, and all that stuff throughout his entire coaching career at the college level, not only with Boston College, but also with other programs. He's always developed NHL players. Boston College does a really good job of developing NHL players. As a matter of fact, the general manager of the Minnesota Wild today, Bill Guerin, is a product of Boston College. Not with Jerry York, but he came out of Boston College. But anyway, they develop good hockey players there. They have a good program. They have a really good coach. They have a proven track record. And Jake McBain is in his 4th year at Boston College. As you know, when these players get drafted, you have 4 years to sign them. It's the same situation the Canadians have with Jordan Harris. Minnesota hasn't signed Jake McBain yet, and it doesn't look like they will. So the Canadians are one of the teams knocking on the door saying, hey, we're interested in Jake McBain. What will it take? We know that Kent Hughes and Bill Guerin have a relationship. They're friends. Kent Hughes brought up his name when he was hired. He said Bill Guerin told him, Kent, don't even think about it. It's the New York Yankees, the Dallas Cowboys. These are the Montreal Canadiens. You have to take the job. So now there's a couple of questions we need to ask here. Number one, if you recall, Guerin did the Canadians a favor by trading them Andrew Hammond for Brian Baddock when the Canadians desperately needed a goalie because Caden Primo's confidence was dipping by the minute, by the day, by the period, by the game. So he did them a favor. I'm sure Bill Guerin would love to have Artturi Lehkonen on his team. Would Lehkonen go to Minnesota? And would Jake McBain be coming back along with a draft pick or along with another prospect? And that would be the rights to sign Jake McBain, of course. I think it's something to consider. Here's something else to consider. Where would Jake McBain fit with the Canadians? They got Suzuki as their number 1 center. They got Dvorak as their number 2 center when he comes back. They have Jake Evans as their number 3. You have Paling or Dauphin as your number 4. One of Paling or Dauphin can play on the wing. So clearly the Canadians want to get bigger at center. Do they think Jake McBain can develop into a second-line centerman? I doubt it. Do they see him more on a 3rd line or on a 4th line? Is it possible they're very concerned about Jake Evans, who at one point had 4 documented concussions in a span of 2 years and 9 months and just returned to the lineup after taking a shot to the head and looked like he was a little bit shaken up? Are they worried about that? Are they not convinced with Ryan Paling? Are they looking to move Paling? Are they looking to move Dvorak and give Evans Dvorak's spot? But then again, Evans not capable of centering a second line. At least I don't think so. So why would they want to acquire McBain? Is it just overall depth? There's a lot of questions, and I want you to think about them. We'll continue to monitor the situation. The NHL trade deadline is about 10 days away. The Canadians have so many players. Kent Hughes has already gone on record as saying Ben Sherratt will be traded. He's already said, we're going to try and trade Jeff Petrie if we can find a deal that makes sense for both teams. Lehkonen's not a priority to trade, but if he gets a great offer, he'll trade him. He's interested in a guy like McBain. You think you'd like to get a puck-moving defenseman. You think he wants to part ways with some salaries. Brett Kulak and Chris Weidman are both going to be unrestricted free agents at the end of the year. You can trade both of them, and you can either bring one or both or none back in the offseason. There's a lot of questions. But today I leave you with this. I would trade Artturi Lehkonen. Would you? And if so, where would you trade him? What are you asking for? How much can he fetch? If he doesn't fetch what you want, then do you keep him? If you keep him, how much do you give him? Can he be part of a deal for Jake McBain and the rights to Jake McBain? This Kent Hughes trade with Bill Guerin again? They're friends. They already made one deal. Can it be two? This is why you continue and should continue to follow the Sick Podcast, because I'll tackle all of these questions, your burning questions, and more. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at the Sick Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Why? Because this podcast is sick. Like me.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature, and Lehkonen. If the last time you went to Lehkonen was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to Lehkonen. The menu will surprise you.